Welcome to Are You Saved? The History of Blacks and Religion. My name is Dr. Jonathan Lee Walton, and I am the Dean of the School of Divinity at Wake Forest University. And with me today is an extraordinary and illustrious panel of not only three of the best minds in African-American Protestantism and theological education. We have three of its most productive participants in terms of leadership in the community. I would like to welcome first the Reverend Dr. Calvin O. Butts III, pastor of the historic Abyssinian Baptist Church in New York. Dr. Butts, I'm wondering if you could start us off by talking about this central role of the church. If you could start us off talking about what's this central capacity and fixture of Black life that our religious institutions have played.
Thank you, Dr. Walton. It's good to be with you and good to talk about how we preserve this. Du Bois also said that the Black church was the only institution among people of African descent to have survived the Middle Passage. And that was a very interesting statement to me, but I think it's one that proves to be true as we get deeper into this discussion. The most important book that I ever read about the Black church, not discounting the works of Du Bois and others, was a little volume written by E. Franklin Frazier, entitled The Negro Church in America. And this, for me, has capsulized, very few words, this prominent sociologist, capsulized what the Black church really means for us as an African people here in the wilderness of North America. And he said, roughly, that the Black church provided the first place of social cohesion. It was really the first place where we could get together and have some modicum of free discussion about what was happening with our families, what was going on in our communities, what was happening with ourselves. And in that place, we could get together where just about everything else was taboo, off limits. The two or three of us couldn't even stand in the crowd and talk. But at the church, we could, the first place of social cohesion. He goes on to say that the Black church, of course, was the first place of economic development for people of African descent. We pooled our money to bury our dead, to take care of, quote, our widows and orphans, and to provide other mutual aid and benefit to each other, and to buy land on which to build our churches and to pay for the building of our churches. So it was economic development. The next, political organization. It was the Black church where it was generally the African-American clergy person who had the freedom to move about in the plantation, the slave quarters. It was the African-American clergy person who people looked to for direction, particularly when everything else on this earth seemed to fail. And in those days of the enslavement of our people, everything else was failing. So it was the spiritual leadership. And so also that African-American clergy person was the one who had the confidence of the community generally, who could go to the white man, the overseer, the slave master, so-called, and negotiate on behalf of the community. And so that was where we started to develop some sense of politics, political education. Next, the first place of education was in the churches, where we learned to read and where we learned to write. And of course, there are instances where it did not happen in the church, but largely, particularly as we move forward. So the first place of social cohesion, the first place of education, the first place of economic development, the first place of politics, that for me is still the same when describing and talking about the Black church. And it represents why this institution continues to be of primary importance to us today. Economic cooperation simply is what so many churches are doing now in terms of community development. Of course, education, many of our churches, wherever they may be and however much they may give, still support organizations like UNCF and give to specific colleges, Morehouse College, Spelman College, Tuskegee University, Howard University, and so on. And politics, well, you've got Raphael Warnock running for the United States Senate down in the state of Georgia. You had Floyd Flake, who served in the United States Congress. And of course, the epitome of all of that, the leading figure, would be Adam Clayton Powell Jr. And so we continue to see, and by the way, President Obama would not have become President Obama if it had not been for the movement of the Black church in terms of politics. And we still get together and meet, thank God, that we don't forsake the gathering of ourselves except in COVID-19, together to provoke unto love and good works. So where we talk about, how's your family? These are all my friends. Walton, McMickle, Marshall Terman, these are all my friends. I can talk to them. I'm interested in their families, their growth, and their development in the church. Let's say we all belong to the same church. We could meet and talk. That's the primary importance of the church. And I still hold to that. E. Franklin Frazier did a wonderful sociological study, and I think it still stands today. So we must preserve at all costs, for our own survival in this wilderness of North America, the Black church.